Greetings all and welcome to Daily Pali Reading. Today we're jumping into a sutta, actually near the end of one. This is the Tevijja Sutta, and we're picking up the action where the Buddha has been asked by one of the hereditary priests, one of the Brahmins, how does one gain union or company with Brahma? Now this is Brahma, the creator god, not Brahman, that we find in Vedanta and the Upanishads. So we're going to pick up with the Buddha's response, starting with our passage for today. Tasime pancha nivarane pahine attani samanupassato pamojang jayati. When that monk perceives in himself these 5 hindrances abandoned, joy arises. So to start with, we have tas ime, which is a contraction of tassa and ime. Tassa is the demonstrative pronoun, and it's referring back to bhikkhu, a monk. Now, tassa is also in the genitive case. This is the genitive singular. And if we look ahead, we'll see a samanupassato, from samanupassati, to perceive. This is actually the active participle, and it's the genitive singular active participle, genitive masculine singular active participle, which means that we now have the ingredients for a genitive absolute, meaning that we have a noun, in this case a pronoun, and we have a verb, both in the genitive. The genitive absolute, if you're familiar with Latin, there's the ablative absolute. In Greek, there is a genitive absolute. In Pali, there are 2 absolutes possible, the genitive and the locative. The locative is actually more common, but the genitive absolute is used. And these absolutes usually have some kind of idea of when, while, because, or although. So there's some sort of temporal or contemporaneity, if I said that right. Maybe a causal connection to the main verb, and maybe a concessive one. Here, we have some kind of temporal relationship. It could be while this is happening or even after. And in our case, we could see this as causal, because this happens, or after or while. I think those would all get at the meaning here. We'll come back and look at this as a whole in a minute. We will notice now that in between the tassa and the samanupassato, that we have several words. And what we have is the object of samanupassato, the object of what is being perceived. And we also have the location of where this perception is taking place. So firstly, we have as object ime pancha nivarane pahine. Ime is another demonstrative pronoun, and it is accusative masculine plural, and it's going with pancha, the number 5, which is both of which are describing nivarane. And that word is also, unsurprisingly, masculine accusative plural. Nivarane are the 5 hindrances. And the hindrances, I will kind of flash up here on the screen. You can check out the Pali, but they typically are listed as sensory desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. So these are not only perceived, but they are perceived as having been abandoned. Pahine. And pahine comes from pajahati, to give up. It is in fact the past participle of pajahati. You will find in the iti vuttaka. For example, the Buddha exhorting his monks, ekadamang pajahata. Give up one thing, O monks. So here, as a past participle, that's a verbal adjective. We could say that when this monk, disciple, follower perceives these 5 abandoned hindrances, we could put it like that, or these 5 hindrances which have been abandoned, those both get at the meaning. Then we have the word attani, and this is the locative of attang, which means, in this case, self. So to recap all of that, when this one perceives in himself these 5 hindrances which have been abandoned, then we can go on to pamojang, which is joy. That is a neuter nominative singular. So it functions as our subject, delight, joy, happiness. Jayati arises. We met with Jayati back in our Vachagota readings. And really, we're going to leave it here. The one thing that I would like to mention is how nice it is that joy is mentioned. That an outcome of the Buddha's teaching is that we will experience joy. We can actually expect to experience joy. Needless to say, this is not the fruit of all spiritual paths, but it actually makes sense that it would be a part of the Buddhist path, as the Buddha's teaching is fundamentally about removing suffering, overcoming suffering. So tune in next time, and we will continue with this theme of joy. Peace, everyone.